Hello and welcome back to another episode of Only a Bag, a travel podcast. My name is Nathaniel Mellor.
Doing your radio voice today?
I am doing my radio voice today, and apparently that is Darcy Melton.
This is Darcy Melton accusing Nathaniel of doing his radio voice.
That's a good radio voice too. Should we both do radio voices?
No, we should do normal voices.
Well, that was a close one, guys. We almost as NPR here.
So, what are we talking about?
We're going to talk about, kind of picking up where we left off. We're going to talk about food in Perugia.
Cool. Before we do that, I just want to say that if you want to support us, a great way to do that is by clicking the affiliate link in the description for Trusted House Sitters. House sitting is the main way that we travel. It's just one of the most, if not the most affordable way we've figured out to travel around. So you can do that and support us.
You can also support us emotionally by following us, liking us, reviewing us, and I don't know, if you ever see us, give us a high five or something, or just say that you're proud of us. That'd be really nice too.
We need you as part of our support system.
I'm not against it at all. And then secondly, there will be, hopefully, if I can figure out how to make one, a poll in the description. You do not have to take the poll. It is not mandatory. But it would be helpful because we're just wanting to know basically how much you listen to the podcast, like not how much you listen to the podcast, but how much of the podcast you listen to. Because
meaning, do you prefer 30-minute episodes, 45-minute episodes, hour long?
Exactly. Yeah. Because I realize not everyone has time to sit down to listen to an hour-long podcast. I think both of us listen to podcasts while we work, so it's a little bit different because I'm like, I could just put something on for a few hours and not worry about it. Mm-hmm. But we realize other people might be like 30 minutes is better, and then I turn it off. And then I'll never turn it on again. So that will be in the description. And without further ado, I bring to you Perugia food, which, if you ever look it up, by the way, every search engine will try to correct you into Peruvian food, not Perusian food. So if you're ever looking for like the best restaurant in Perugia, they keep asking me if I meant the best restaurants in Peru, which I'm also curious about that, but
we're not in Peru.
But we're not in Peru,
so it's a little
right now, it's a little like
not super helpful.
Not as helpful. So, Darcy, what are some Perusian foods you'd like to talk about?
First, I want to talk about truffles.
Okay.
Umbria, right, it is known for their truffles, black and white truffles, if I'm not mistaken.
You are not.
Okay. But mostly white truffles?
I think they're kind of, I want to say they're known for both. Okay. I mean, I say that because there seems to be some, contention as to whether the black truffles that grow in Umbria, the region that Perugia is within, and also the capital of, there seems to be some sort of contention from French truffles growers or critics saying that you
stole... The truffles themselves.
Yeah, you stole our... the truffles are furious. You stole our truffles and sort of planted them or created the conditions in which they would best flourish in Umbria. So there is some sort of... there seems to be a lot of basically saying people are saying that's actually a French truffle in Perugia. The white truffle seems to be maybe more native, but I'm honestly not sure.
They seem delicious, both.
Oh, yeah, they're fantastic.
And so just a quick explanation is that the white truffles are like a lighter flavor and are often, they're like grated on top of pasta, right?
Yeah, like shaved.
Shaved, thank you, on top of pasta. And the black truffles are more often... infused in oil, is that correct?
Kind of. I don't know that they're infused in oil or in like cheese or in sauces. Like
they're
something
more of a punchy flavor than the white truffle.
And there are a few places in Perugia to try truffles. There's truffle stores. There is a restaurant that's pretty much something called truffle is something in the name, and I'll find it and put the description for everybody. But I mean, sorry, truffle, not in English, in Italian. Tartufo, yeah. And they basically do a ton of truffle dishes. And then, I think there's like one or two like little like bottega di tartufo. Also, just I think we should throw out right now, just in case anybody has not been to Italy or had Italian desserts. There's also a dessert called the tartufo.
Yes.
Which is not
made with truffles.
Not made with truffles.
It just looks like the top of a truffle,
yeah, it's like a chocolate dome, but it's not also like a truffle that we have when we talk about chocolate truffles, which we're going to do so in about 2 seconds.
Yeah. But you're right. That is a good distinction because when I first saw it, I thought it was a mushroom dessert.
Yeah,
right. Sorry, not mushroom.
Truffle?
A truffle dessert.
Someone's very angry with you. Not me, but somebody who knows more about truffles is like, excuse me.
Yes, so there's no truffles in the tartufo desserts. But speaking of truffle desserts, chocolate is quite famous in Perugia. There is the Perugia Chocolate Factory.
Perugina, right?
Perugina, thank you. Owned by Nestle, so sad boo.
Sad boo.
Sad
Is there
boo.
a happy boo? Boo.
Well, maybe like a ghost boo. Boo.
Okay, I can
like
see
that's
that.
an excited ghost.
So this is boo.
Sad boo boo. Because they're owned by Nestle, and Nestle does not ethically source their chocolate. So
Ethically just being like paying people for harvesting chocolate, just in case anybody's like, what do you mean ethically? We mean, ideally you should be paying your laborers to be sourcing chocolate. Otherwise
Right.
it just feels a little bit borderline 100% into
modern day slavery. Absolutely it is. Just to be super upfront about that.
But fret not, we have a couple recommendations on where you can find much better sourced chocolate and truffles in this episode. So if you keep listening, we can rebuild your hearts if they're broken.
Yes, there are places in Perugia to get well-sourced, ethical, happy chocolate.
Yeah.
So super well known for chocolate there.
There's also, I was going to say, like, if I may, we talked about it very briefly in the last episode, just the idea of Etruscan food, and because Perugia was once, it started as and then became a very well-known Etruscan city. Etruscan, right?
Etruscan, yeah.
Etruscan. And so a lot of the cuisine, a lot of the sort of traditional cuisine is still quite influenced by that.
Yeah.
While they do have pasta, obviously, of course, it's the north. Like they have one called stringozzi, which is kind of like a, it means shoelaces, interestingly. Or
Oh, I didn't know that.
yeah, I
It
found that
totally is like a shoelace
Yeah.
in shape, not in texture.
Yeah. No, and kind of like the idea in texture. This is a little, it's a little chewy. It's good. No, in shapes, there's a little bit kind of, shoelaces. So that is all to say that while they do absolutely have pasta, the sort of history of food in Perugia and in Umbria is more in sort of grains. I would say in beans, legumes.
Yeah, like legumes, grains.
What are they? They have like farro.
Yeah.
They have
Is lentil? Lentil's a legume?
Lentils, legume. They have some like kind of heirloom varieties of farro. There's a bean that's grown near the lake Tresemeno, I believe. And it's a bean that's basically grown since the Etruscan time. It was once a very reliable food source, almost died out after World War II. But since then, it's made a bit of a recovery, and you can still buy them. I mean, you can buy them in almost every food shop in Perugia. Not necessarily grocery store. When I say food shop, I mean like
The more like artisanal.
yeah,
sort
artisanal
of,
foods or
yeah.
salumeria that are kind of selling nice things. I mean, some grocery stores might have it, but the ones we went to were more like big box stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
But the legumes and the grains and all of that are a big part of the slow food movement, which is
Yes, huge
in Perugia. I don't know if we mentioned this in the last episode, but you can take food tours.
yes,
In
I think we
Perugia.
actually have a link in the description of the last
yes.
episode, and we'll have one in the description of this episode too. If you want to support the channel, there's a link for food tours in the description,
They're
and we'd
all
love you
about
to use it.
slow food movement.
Yeah, for sure,
great.
for sure. Which is just, I guess, I don't know if is it a national thing, slow food movement,
I think it's an international thing.
international thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like run by the Italian government.
I
I just
didn't-
think it's
no,
like
I-
cultural.
Yeah, okay.
pride.
Because I hear slow food a lot, but they really seem to like leap into it here in the sense that there's so many cookbooks and restaurants that have that little, it's a snail. It's a little picture of a snail. That means slow food. And it's all about basically, it sort of gets intertwined a lot with the kilometer zero food, which we've talked about before, which was be sourcing things from basically 0 kilometers away if possible. But as we've mentioned, just with this bean that comes from Lake Trasimeno, it's not a kilometer away, but it's still quite close. And historically, it would have been,
A part of the diet.
a part of the diet,
Yeah.
exactly. So if you're interested in any sort of really interesting foods, traditional foods, there's a link hopefully in the description to food tours. But I fully encourage anyone listening to do some Googling Etruscan food tours Perugia, because there are, just people out there who are happy to do those tours. So I think we're now going to talk about some of our favorite places. If anyone listening is interested in our personal recommendations.
Yeah, and there are so many restaurants
Yes.
in Perugia.
That's actually probably a good way to start is while we like the ones we're going to list, it very much feels like one of those places that you could honestly not go wrong. I mean, you can go wrong, but like it's going to be hard to have a bad meal there.
Right. We honestly had so many great meals, and there were a lot of places that we didn't eat that looked delicious and we just happened to not be there at the right time. We'd already had dinner, or they were a bit out of our budget, or it was meat. But there really are so many great looking restaurants all over.
And I think just to kind of throw that in there, part of the reason is because the capital of Umbria, so there's a little bit of a sense of like you need it. I mean, the nicest stuff in Umbria should probably be in the capital in that sense. As we mentioned also in the previous episode, it is a university town, but part of one university at least is for foreigners or to attract foreigners. So there are a lot of sort of international foods that we enjoy.
Yeah. So speaking of which, there is this small street that is, I want to say, the home of many international restaurants. And we're going to list some of our favorites, but it's
Corso, the Giuseppe Garibaldi.
Yes, it is. And so there's Greek food, there's Chinese food,
There's one that's just, it says African food, and I don't know where.
Yes, which country specifically, or which region? Yeah,
they basically it's a lot of like both bean dishes, but also falafel. So there seems to be like some kind of North African influence. But I've also had, I think in Berlin at once I had like Somalian falafel. I think. So I'm not entirely sure. Sudanese falafel, which not that they're that close to each other. But no, it's supposed to be just sort of a not mashup, but what is it, like a internet, like continental influence, I think is probably what you call it. Yeah,
that's a good way to put it, I think.
Of African food. So I think they call it's like Mandela restaurant or something like that. So it's a little, I don't know if there's any South African dishes though, despite the fact it's called Mandela. I mean, there's a picture of Nelson Mandela on the front, right. So it's not like a mandala. It's definitely the man.
Nelson Mandela, yes.
The myth, the legend.
So in addition to that restaurant,
sure, that took up a minute and a half.
One of our favorite restaurants on that street is Wang, which is Chinese food, right?
Yeah.
I always look at you to make sure because your food's better than I do.
Barely, and thank you though for your.
But it is so good.
And if I'm not part of the reason we like it so much is because it's not. For any Americans listening, we have a very specific, I think, American Chinese food. And this is not that. It's not, for sure, not Chinese food. It's not like, oh, I could be in China. But it really is some of the best Chinese food I think we've had in general. I guess not in China. I should probably throw out.
I have not been to China, but Nathaniel has.
Yeah, I mean, there's great food in China. There's probably terrible food in China too. I don't know. I imagine like any country, there's good and bad food. But this one was really nice. It was super reasonably priced as far as like.
Yes, very affordable.
It's almost felt like it. I mean, it's just to give you a hint of the vibe. It does tend to cater towards a younger crowd. I think partly because of the sort of budget. Like $5 a plate is sort of the. That's like. $7, I think, is the most you'll spend on a plate. So we get like 4 or 5 plates for the table.
Yeah, we would usually each get a pasta. A
noodle dish.
Noodle dish is what I should
say. We're quite Italian here.
A noodle dish, and then split a couple of what are they called? Contorni.
There was like the fried green beans, or there was like these little spring rolls.
Broccoli, the broccoli and the wok, the little mini wok. Okay, it's a little kitschy. They serve the broccoli in this little mini wok with a little like
tea light under it. Yeah.
But it's so good.
But they also have this kind of like hot pot. They do a lot of like sharing dishes that you're supposed to. Yeah, like there's also some sort of, I don't think it's hot pot, but it's a giant clay pot they bring to the table that's already there, and you sort of dish it into your bowls. It's either called Wang or Wang 2. I'm not sure. They have business cards that say Wang 2, but on Google Maps it's called Wang.
Yeah.
That one's pretty amazing though. If you're just, it's funny. I realized people are listening to a Italian podcast, but
to hear about international food, yeah.
Well, and I think one of the reasons we wanted to mention some of stuff like this is one query, I should say, that pops up a lot on Reddit, specifically like the Rome or even the Italy, and sometimes the solo travel subreddits, are people in Italy looking for non-Italian food. They're like, I'm so tired of Italian food.
Well, people that we've talked to recently who've, lots of people are visiting Italy this summer. I think a lot of people hit a point when you're from, especially in America, and you're used to a diverse cultural diet. On the third or fourth day, people are like, I love pasta and pizza, but my gosh, I need something else today.
Yes, and that's, I think, a big thing that for us going to Perugia was such a panacea, I think is how it's called. Just from all the Italian food. I think we went to Perugia the first time, it was, I think it was basically 8 months, 9 months after being in Italy, only pasta. We hadn't yet discovered that there are like some grocery stores that do carry like curry or tofu or like something that was not strictly Italian. And maybe it's a little less monotonous if you do eat meat because there are more varieties of meat here than there are vegetarian food. But no, it was just such this just like beautiful moment of, oh my God,
Kind
there's
of a
other
relief.
food.
Yeah, it was really
such a
nice.
relief. And I think the entire time we were in for the first month, we ate nothing but just food that was not Italian, basically. So on that street, as you mentioned, full of variety of restaurants.
Yes, there's also Sapori Greco, which is the Greek restaurant.
Greek restaurant, basically, it's not a
It's not a sit-down restaurant.
unless it's changed, which I doubt it has. It's very much a take it and eat it outside or take it to go, but it's basically kebab or gyros and falafel. Delicious. I mean, phenomenal. I mean, I don't know. It's amazing, but also it was a little bit like you can't really eat it because it wasn't in a little wrap. So it was kind of like they put it in that giant cup thing.
Yeah.
And then you're like, good luck eating that.
It that
yeah,
way,
it was a little bit of a
struggled,
nightmare.
but it was delicious.
I mean, the flavors were amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and on the same street, there's also a Dal Micocco, which is Italian.
Yeah, very Italian. Super Italian.
And it's highly awarded, right? It's got like a bunch of great reviews, and everybody's always going there.
It's also it's a set menu as a heads up for anybody who's considering going. It seems to be delicious, but it's very much a set menu and a little bit old school in that sense, where it's like what they're making is what you get.
Yes.
But it's just very much it's a place to try. It's basically definitely a restaurant that should be on your list. It should be on everybody's list if you're going to Perugia, but that if you're only going to go for 1 or 2 nights, that should be one of the 2 restaurants.
And so that's Corso Garibaldi, and there are lots of different restaurants on that. It's a very long street, but they're all in pretty close proximity to each other. And that is very much near the University for Foreigners and the Etruscan Arch, if you're Googling it. And also in that area is a place called Pintoricchio, which is a little American cafe. I was going to say American style. It is American style, but it's also run by an American. It's great. It's got little
like
lunchy things, pancakes,
French toast. He does like quiches. The guy who runs it makes quiches, muffins.
Yeah.
It's kind of like just a beautifully wide. I mean, very laid back, very low key. Do not go if you are in a rush. It is often just the owner, and sometimes the owner and one other person working. It's usually the owner cooking, so I don't recommend it if you're like, we have 20 minutes before we have to get out of town and catch a bus. No.
I mean, you can grab a coffee there at the
Oh
bar.
God, yeah, sorry, yeah, I should
But
have said that. Yes.
the vibe is very much more sit down, relax, have a nice long little cafe lunch. Oh, bagels.
Oh, he does have
Yes,
yes.
bagels. Oh,
Yes, they're made in house too.
I missed that. Yeah.
So that was I forgot about the bagels. Those are amazing.
Takes me back. All right.
So that's on this. It's actually I think it's called like Via Pintricchio, which is kind of this like major street. And getting a little ahead of ourselves, but I just want to throw it out because it's on the same street. Is one of our was one of the chocolate places we're going to recommend.
Yes. Yeah. It's basically between the Etruscan Arch and Pintoricchio.
Yeah, it's right on the corner. Near weirdly, it's like this like sunken basketball court. There's
Purposefully, it's built that
Oh,
way.
yeah, sorry,
It's
so,
not
like-
sunken in on itself.
Yeah, no, sorry.
Is it Augustina or Augusta?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Perugia. Augusta or Perugia?
I think it's Augusta Perugia.
Is
yeah.
the chocolate shop. Yeah.
And it's really not beautiful. It's just like little family run, yummy little chocolates. They seem to be fresh because the few times we went, it just seems like there's constant turnover, like cycling.
Yes, and you can see them making the chocolate in some instances. Yeah,
Which is nice. It's just not sitting around because that's always the thing with chocolates, especially in the summer, especially when I say the summer because that's when like you have a lot of flies, you have a lot of bugs that are coming
and
around.
Italians aren't eating chocolate in the summertime
Oh my
either.
God,
so
no.
if it's made, it's going to be sitting there until a non-Italian person comes along.
So the winter, of course, is when people in Italy buy chocolate. And it's when you're going to just, if you time it right, you get in there when it was just made and it's phenomenal. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it's on the same street. And you're going to kind of figure this out from the rest of the episode, but it's a very small city. I would say it's a large town in many aspects. Not town like tiny town, but like...
I would say it's a small city.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking the old part.
Size-wise, it's the size of a town.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking. Like the size of a town,
But
it's
it's still
basically...
city.
Because you can walk from... No, of course it's still a city. I just meant like... as an American, when I think small city, I mean, I'm thinking a place that takes 25 minutes to drive from one side to the other. Perugia takes about 15 minutes to walk from one side to the other. So it's just one of those things, like, it's definitely it's a town vibe or it's a city vibe, I should say, in a large town.
Yes,
If that makes
I can
sense.
see that.
So you're going to find that out from this, because everything's going to be right next to each other. You're like, oh yeah, this is very easy to find. So what's next?
Okay, so I did forget to mention Il Giardino, which is also on
Yes.
Corso Garibaldi. It is a cute little tucked away garden. I think it's mostly geared towards aperitivi, like having an aperitivo there. But if you're interested in going, do check out just Google it or check out their Instagram page, because they change. Like sometimes they'll do like Sunday lunch or different special offerings, essentially.
Yeah, those are like only aperitivo on one night, or it's like a full dinner on another night, or like a wide variety of different kind of. It's again one of those places that's a very limited set menu, and like a lot of places in Perugia, not a lot of places, like a handful of places in Perugia, it seems very experimental in many aspects. If that's if that's fair, not like experimental like weird, just experimental like.
Just trying stuff out.
Exactly, to see like what people like, because it is such a cute little hidden end in a garden, so it's beautiful.
All right, so moving up the street in my mind towards the center of town, there is La Bottega, which is a sandwich shop. It's also one that you can't eat in. You just pick up your sandwich and stand outside.
We only. It's funny, we kept walking by because there's a huge crowd outside every time we went outside, unless it was closed, and we couldn't figure it out. And it's another one of those, like the Gambero Rosso is highly reviewed. Gambero Rosso being like a food magazine in Italy, gave it 3 whatever it is for
Gamberi.
Yeah, well, it's like they always have different things for different restaurants. So it's like some are cones, some are, if it's a gelato place, or wine glasses. But
so give them
for this
3
one,
food items.
Yeah, 3 food items. No, a lot of that, but that again, place has just gotten tons of awards for being a little sandwich place. So if you're looking for a quick bite, the line does seem to move quite quickly. So it's
they seem pretty efficient.
Yeah, just in case you see a huge line, you're like, oh my god, never mind. It should be, over in a matter of minutes. Sorry.
So then moving up into the center of town is probably our favorite pizza place in town, and maybe one of the very few pizza places in town.
Yeah, I think it's one of the few,
Napolitano style pizza.
Possibly the only.
Yeah, possibly the only Napolitano style pizza in Perugia. It's called Mediterraneana, right?
Mediterraneana? Yeah, Mediterranean? My gosh. These languages confuse me.
It has great pizza. You are probably going to have to wait for a table, but it's totally worth it if you need a good pizza.
And a lot of these places, I just want to throw out, like, as Americans, you and I don't typically make a reservation. I say that because a lot of places where we come from, the town where we come from, in the States, of course, not in Italy, is quite anti-reservation, I think. Like, no reservations allowed.
They have reservations about reservations. That was so good, y'all.
Oh my god, we were waiting for the pun. That wasn't even scripted, y'all. We can't even take that out. If I mess up going forward, it's going to have to weirdly cut. And now he's forgotten his place.
So do you recommend making a reservation?
Yes.
For the Mediterranean?
Right. Well, I'm thinking in all of Italy, it's always smart. Most people here make reservations.
They do.
Even if it's going to be empty that night and no one's going to be there, and you're telling your friend group no one's going to be there, it's a Tuesday night, no one's going out to eat. They're like, make a reservation just to be safe. So you do, and you get there and no one's there, and you're like, oh, I'm glad I made a reservation. All that is to say, making reservations is very much a part of the culture here. And by and large, every restaurant we have listed and will list, you can make a reservation. Just obviously call or go by to double check. And I say that because of Mediterraneana, I don't know if you can make a reservation there.
You can. I have before.
You have. Okay, fantastic.
But the other way, so it always scares me because I'm a anxiety-ridden person. To go there and just get a table without a reservation, you have to walk inside, and they have almost like a little bookshelf where they have all the wait staff puts their little checks in and does their little receipts. It has
a little POS system.
Yeah. So you have to go to that little spot and ask if you can have a table, and 50-50 chance the person will be very nice or they'll be very grumpy because it's very intense, quick paced.
It's also just as if I may also throw in a quick warning too, there are sometimes empty tables inside that they aren't sitting people at, whether it's if they're like it's too hot or it's in the there's one that's like right in the blast of the fan, so if it's in the summer, it's always getting this cold blast of air, and there's this winter, it's getting a hot blast of air. So like nobody wants to sit there. But then every once in a while we'll be waiting, and then somebody cuts in front of us somehow and gets to sit at that table, and they're like, well, they didn't seem to mind. And I'm like, I did not mind either.
Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
So anyway, that's to say is it's a little bit funky, as you mentioned, but it's very much well worth the wait. Great pizza, amazing house wine.
Yes.
If you're just hankering for Southern styled pizza, Southern style makes it sound really American, but
Southern
style pizza, Napolitano styled pizza, that is absolutely a must visit.
Yes. So our next pizza place is very different.
Oh my God, could not be any more different.
Different pizza, different vibe, different everything. But it's so cute. So on the main drag in town, there is this little door. It's kind of inconspicuous.
Because it's up a little staircase?
Yes, it's a little up staircase, little door. And it's just like I was going to say an alleyway. It's not what it is. A galley? Is that what I'm thinking?
Yeah, it's like a little hallway galley style thing. And then you pop out into the pizzeria.
Yeah. And it's this older gentleman and his son who just run this little, is it Pizza Atalio? Would you say that?
I would say it's Pizza Atalio, but it's pre-cut Pizza Atalio. So I think it's...
Meaning they cut it. They make it there and cut it.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Pre-cut in the sense of you just ask, I want one piece of this and one piece of that. And then you pay whatever it is, €1 or €1.50 a piece.
But their kitchen's upstairs, right? Because they have like a little
it's somewhere.
It's not an elevator.
Yeah.
It's
a little dumbwaiter.
Yeah, it's a little pizza dumbwaiter.
It's kind of amazing. And they have it's very classic. So you have, margarita. You have... A big one here is French fries on a pizza. Not here in Perugia. Here in Italy, it's French fries on a pizza. It's kind of a play though on there's a much more famous slices of like thinly sliced potato on a pizza, and so I think the French fries is a version of that. But often what happens is you order a piece or two pieces and they sandwich them together, wrap it in a little napkin, and hand it to you. It's kind of amazing.
A good version is the one slice of the margarita and one slice of the French fry.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Put them together. Oh, really good.
For like €3 a person, that is a huge meal. It's always like super hot for some reason. It's like really fresh.
And there's no seating inside, but there are the steps right outside where you can sit, and it's very close to the main park at the top of town.
Yeah, the Giardino, basically. At the top, if you like to sit and eat. It's very much student food in the sense of, again, young people, lines, but everything's super, super, super cheap. And because there's such a turnover of food, you're not eating like 4-hour-old pizza. You're eating
it's like 1 minute old. Like it came out in front of your face.
And then he's already cutting it up. And there's already, sometimes too, if you want like a piece of margarita, he's like, all right, there's a line for the margarita because, it hasn't been baked yet kind of thing. So you have to wait there for a few minutes. Hugely fun experience, I would say.
Yeah, they're great. Okay, so I guess our last restaurant recommendation is Porchetta Cotta a Legno.
Yeah, and again, restaurant is a stretch here in the sense of it's a box.
Yeah, it's a food box.
It's a food box. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, just like I think it started out as like one of those like renovated like newspaper stands, like edicola, something like that.
Yes, it totally.
And then
looks
they
like
sort of added to it, changed it. But essentially, it is it's a porchetta stand, and we didn't mention it earlier, but we forgot to. But it's one of the sort of traditional foods of Umbria, is essentially a roasted pig. And depending on the region, sometimes they roast it without anything. Sometimes they roast it with herbs. In Perugia, they do sort of, I don't know the butcher terms, but take out all the stomach stuff, the innards,
and stuff it with herbs.
And then or maybe they just take the skin. I don't know. Somehow it's stuffed with herbs, and sometimes like celery or bay leaf, sage. There's a handful of ones, and then it's roasted for, I think it's a couple hours, 12 hours, something like that.
Something long, yeah.
And so this place, this Porchetta Cotta Legno, it's just one of many places in Perugia that does sell porchetta. But it's easy. It's basically right there. Like you go up, it's a little box. There is a dead pig.
Most of the porchetta places all over Italy will have half to a full pig.
Yes.
On display, and that's what they cut from.
Yeah.
They always have a full pig, which if you're squeamish, just forewarning.
Yeah, that's a good point. I was thinking too, because sometimes they have it at a restaurant. You don't know like if they're getting it from a different place or if they actually did it themselves. Because obviously these porchetta stands, I don't believe they're cooking it themselves. I believe there's somebody cooking it and they're purchasing it.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm assuming it's the same thing, like pancetta or
like barbecue people in the States barbecue.
I know,
their
right?
own
They do.
pork.
So I don't know. I'd genuinely be curious to know because
Next time we go, we need to ask.
We do need to ask if they do it because I always assumed it was like any other aged meat where they just have a supplier that does it consistently good and there's no mistakes kind of thing. But they're €5 to €6 sandwiches. They're all super creative, super inventive.
They look really filling too. It is not a
amazing.
small sandwich.
Yeah, no. It's a giant sandwich. Of course, we are vegetarian. We have not tried it. But when my mom came to visit us in Perugia, I heavily encouraged her to try one. And she reported that it was very tasty. Not a lady of many words.
But before I forget, want to mention, they do have some seating, I believe. There's like
they have like
there's like
little
2 or 3 little seats.
Oh, you're talking about the little stools.
Yeah, there's little stools.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, it's not like a full table, but
well, I guess it's also right next to the post office, so everybody
can sit on the steps of the post office.
Yeah, everyone just sits on the steps of the post office. Which is great. I mean, it makes it a lot easier. It's also, again, it's kind of one of those like, it's kind of one of those places is good because the line of people waiting for it are like people who are taking their lunch break from work. Yeah, if that makes sense. There's like very few tourists. Usually, it's just people who are like, I want a nice porchetta sandwich with some, pickled onions and so on them, and that's where they're going. Mm-hmm. So we've covered all restaurants pretty much.
We've covered the restaurants that we recommend. Yes.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. That goes back to the saying of there are tons of good restaurants in Perugia. You can just simply walk, and you'll walk into one.
Yes. So in that same area, let's talk about some of the panificios that we like.
Yeah, the bakeries, the forni. There's 3 I think in Perugia that we recommend. Yeah,
there's probably 4. Let's run through the list. Okay. Oof. So there is Santino Panetteria. Santino, right? Is that it?
I think so.
That is very near the porchetta place.
Yes, it is near the grocery store as well. There's a coop is what it's called, but it's cope is what it's called, but it's coop in English.
Or co-op.
Yeah, co-op. We pronounce it co-op, but then we found out it is not co-op because in Scotland
there is co-op.
There is co-op,
and they're not the same company.
And it almost has the same lettering. Like the one in Scotland's blue, the one in Italy is red, but they're not the same company, and it's just coop.
So Santino Panetteria is great. They have little pastries, pies, breads, lots of typical stuff. They, like any of the forno that we're going to mention, have a high, I was going to say turnover. That's not the right word, but they change their items frequently based on season and holiday.
Yes, for sure. It's also, you mentioned a high turnover, but also they do a lot of like, again, almost I would say French pastries, Viennese pastries, but like in the sense that there's a lot of like tarts or a lot of puff pastry with fruit on them. But by like midday, maybe 1 o'clock, they're all gone. Yeah. And the only thing they left is like some bread rolls, some bread, and that's usually it. I mean, it's very much cleared out by 3 o'clock.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're gonna go and you want like to try some pastries, it's kind of one of the first things in the morning you should try.
Definitely. And so very next to that, basically, Coop is flanked by these 2 fornos. So that is on one side, and on the other side is Cofopa Panetteria, and there's 2 of these in Perugia. There's the one near Coop in the center of town, and then another on Corso Cavour.
Yes.
So they are probably a bit smaller than Santino, but super typical local recipe items, and they also have a high change during like festival seasons.
They definitely do. And we've gone to Corso Cavour, which we did not mention in the restaurant thing, but it's again one of those things where again you can go down any street and find good restaurants. Corso Cavour is sort of one of those, we talked about it in the previous episode, how Perugia has these sort of arms and legs coming off of it. And the Corso Cavour is one of those legs. And it's very much residential in the sense that the restaurants there cater towards the people, I think, who live there. You're not going to find as many like touristy restaurants, and you're going to find a lot of those like, the panini with the bowl of soup, or you're going to find like the sort of classic trattoria style food where
they're like more family style.
Very much more family style. Yeah.
Lots of them. They look great.
So if you're looking for something a little more traditional, Corso Cavour is a great place to start. But not, there's like this initial little like block where it is a little bit touristy, and then as you keep walking, it gets progressively and very quickly more residential in the sense of residential restaurants, not residential living, which it very much is also residential living.
Yeah, it's both. Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there's that bakery there as well.
Okay, so 2 more bakeries on our list. There is Forno Fontana.
Yeah.
which is down a little side street from the main part of town. And Perugia is it medieval? A lot of the town.
I think so. Maybe, yeah. I think it's like rebuilt in
Got
medieval
very
times.
like Harry Potter-esque
Oh,
streets.
super, yeah.
Like little
absolutely.
arches and dark, and you'll wind up in a funny little corner.
And
then
some like really beautiful streets that are like clearly been like pressure washed, and others that have never ever seen the light of
the
day.
black, yeah. So this is down a little street that is quite dark and medieval and interesting. And it's a woman, and she often has her two little kids there, which is cute. It's just you can fit like two people in her shop.
Oh yeah, no, it's ridiculously small. But also tons of really delicious cookies.
Yes.
That are not, for those of you who are gluten free, it is definitely worth a trip. Again, we've mentioned this in previous episodes that Italy has a couple different traditional cookies that are made with nut flours, like almond flours. She has some that are made with farro flours as well as, and gosh, I cannot remember. It's another grain though. It's a gluten free one. And again, now that I said farro flour, I regret saying if you're gluten free because I believe farro has gluten in it. But definitely still worth the trip because she does have those sort of like, again, a little bit, not outside the box, but a little bit unusual, but very much traditional. Like I don't want to give anybody the impression of it's a fancy new bakery with gluten-free offerings or something like that. It's very much
traditional.
like, like
really
this would have been how cookies were made when we didn't have wheat flour kind of thing. Delicious, genuinely amazing cookies and pastries from there. And bread. I mean, we've gotten a couple like really hearty loaves of bread. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's definitely, if you happen to find it, again, Google Maps for sure is your friend in that situation, but it's much more fun to stumble on it because it's just sort of like there all of a sudden. But that's a great little bakery.
And the last one I have to recommend is Bar Pasticceria dell'Accademia. It is, again, another situation of an older man and his son running it. And they have like more sugary pastries.
It's definitely more pastries.
Yeah. So the others that we've listed are pretty much all fornos or panetteria. So it's more bread focused. It's not to say that they don't have sweet pastries.
It's like bread with like stuff in it, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
Like the pan San Costanzo, which has like anise and like the candied peels and stuff like that,
and spices and
spices.
Things, yeah.
There's the one you like that has basically cheese and walnuts in the bread. Obviously, it's not a dessert, but it can be. But this
it's an anytime bread.
It's an anytime bread. But the Accademia is very much it's a pastry place.
It's sweets, yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful stuff. I think. I mean, we go there for coffee and pastries anytime we're there.
Yes. Okay, so that's a good point. So they have coffee. The other places that we've mentioned, the other fornos, do not serve coffee as well. This really is a pasticceria where you can get your morning coffee and a little pastry to eat before your coffee.
Trying to impress people, you can go there and pick up pastries to go or order some and they'll have it ready the next day. Like I think people come in and get like a cake or like a cake. Yeah. So that's, I mean, if you're going to pick up a cake and impress somebody with your Italian cake knowledge, that's the place to go.
Okay, so to finish up, we're going to talk about gelato.
That is a great place to finish. I don't know if you heard, Darcy, I recently had an article published about gelato.
Did you really? Where is it published? Where can I read it?
It's in Matador Network. For those of you who have heard of Matador Network, you can find 10 ways to find authentic Italian gelato, written by Nathaniel Mellor. That's me. I am the Nathaniel Mellor of the gelato fame.
On Matador.
On Matador.
I'm going to go read it right after this episode.
This is perfect brand placement for another brand. So for those of you who didn't trust me before, now you can. I have Matador backing me. So there are 2 gelato places. There is a lot of gelato, I should say, in Perugia.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, a lot of places have gelato. I mean, even the Accademia has gelato.
That's true. You're right. That's true. They do.
It's just not. I mean, Academias, I think actually never I tried because it's always just a little dodgy sometimes when you go to a place and try gelato and you realize like, oh man, it is made for the tourists. In the sense of it's very sugary, it's fake flavored.
I feel like we were also, that's not necessarily theirs is.
No. But that's some of them are like, we have gelato too. And you go like, oh, I was hoping for like really well made gelato.
Yeah. But we also usually aren't in Perugia in the right season for gelato.
Very much not.
We're there when it's chilly.
Yeah, we spent 6 to 8 months there, and only one of those months was in the summer, so the end of the gelato season. And we actually saw some of the gelaterias close because well, gelato season was over. What are you going to stay open? So what do we
So
like?
we recommend La Artigiana. Is that
Yeah,
what I wrote down?
l'Artigiana del Gelato. That one's kind of, there's a really big fountain in the middle of Perugia near the church, which is not the most descriptive I've ever been in my life. But there's a big fountain and
It's
a
the
big
top
church.
of the center of
Yeah,
town.
top of the center of town. And in that little square, in that little piazza, there is the l'Artigiana del Gelato.
It's great.
Really good. They have some fun flavors like rice. They have a rice milk one, though. I think was kind of interesting. Again, for people who can't have lactose or who are vegan. But it's not, I should clarify, it's not a... Basically, it seems like it's not just supposed to be vegan. It happens to be vegan, but it was supposed to be like, this is a rice milk gelato just to see how it can taste. But they have some fun, interesting flavors, but predominantly the classic, the hazelnuts, the pistachios. Is that how we say it? The coffee, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's also another lovely...
Lick. And it's so good. I did not mean to say that in an overt way.
Yeah, there's no other way to say lick. Like, where are you going to go tonight? Lick.
Lick. I'm just going to go to Lick.
I don't know if it sounds better in leek in Italian, but like that is on Corsica 4. So we mentioned it's sort of like that, again, we're nice restaurants, a little residential. It is a bit, you have to go down the stairs from Perugia. I mean, it's in Perugia, what am I talking about? But from like the old part. And it's the first thing you see. It's this right on the corner, lick. And they
have some weird flavors.
yes.
Weird in a good way, like experimental.
Yeah, no, and that's what I really like. I think we both really like about gelateria is that have classic flavors, fine, but there's always that one that's just like, who would make that? So you have to try it, and you're like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
They also have a yogurt one. They have a few other random ones that are a little bit more common, but if you're looking for something a little more avant-garde, Lick. If you're looking for some classic, delicious, amazing l'Artigiano del Gelato.
Lick does also have other flavors that are not
for sure.
wacky.
Yes.
So
Sorry,
if you're
yes.
like, you're a group of people and a couple of you really want something weird and the other couple want something normal, Lick is a good compromise.
Lick is a very good compromise. Yeah. Sorry, that's a much better way to put it. And is that it? Or
I think that needs to be it because we were trying to have a short episode.
So we're at 41 minutes, y'all. We're going to speed through the rest of this because we're at 42 minutes, y'all. And with all of that being said, Tracy's looking at her notes. We wrote notes for this. We were trying to be more than... I'm very long-winded, so I apologize.
Yeah, I always write notes.
Darcy's showing me the notes as proof.
The only thing you wanted to maybe mention is the grocery store.
I did. There is a grocery store. It's temporarily closed as of right now called Umbro. And it's basically, we talked about in Siena, there's this like Consorzio di Agricola something. My Italian's terrible. Basically, it's a bunch of local farmers' products from the area around Siena at a store in Siena. Umbro is a bit like that, but for Perugia or from Umbria. So if you're looking for local wine, we talked about beans, pastas, meats, cheeses. It's going to be a little bit pricier, but is a great selection, a great example of what local flavor, what local foods have to offer.
If you think of like your local fancy grocery store,
Yes.
it's kind of like that, but with more local items.
Exactly. That's actually really good. And because Perugians do shop there, like the fancy ones, like the people who shop at Brooklyn Fair would probably shop at Umbro.
Or like Fresh Market.
Yeah,
or
it's probably a
Whole
little more.
Foods.
When I'm at Brooklyn Fair, I'm like, Brooklyn Fair, of course. It's the most expensive grocery store I've ever shopped at, which is why we went to New York.
It's really top of mind.
Yeah,
for
to
you.
stay with my uncle, and I'm like, he's like, there's a grocery store on that street, and I'm like, it was like $3 or $4 for a pound of pasta, and I'm like, the Barilla pasta, and I was like, wow, New York City's really expensive, and of course we go to like a normal grocery store 2 days later, and I'm like, oh, Brooklyn Fair is just highway robbery, and then we found Trader Joe's, and I have never been the same since. So, with all that being said, thank you all so much for listening to this very short episode on Perugia food.
Very short in Nathaniel terms.
I'm a long-winded human being. I gotta go make dinner. Speaking of food, I'm starving now. And if you'd like to support the channel, as always, until the foreseeable future, there are going to be affiliate links below for Trusted House Sitters, as Darcy mentioned earlier, as well for food tours in Perugia, specifically Montefalco, which we never talked about. But we will in the next episode when we talk about day trips from Perugia.
Yes.
Until then, I've been Nathaniel Mellor.
And I've been Darcy Melton.
And we bid you a good night.
Yes. Let's go make some dinner.